Last stand, and I came to deliver. Been called a Clinton operative, a Russian, and a grifter. By libs, a washing student debt, proud to be an intern, sucking up to pigs who get a tax cut in the midterms. You cut the ties but never heal the wrist burns. Capitalist shackles wrap and penetrate like ringworms around the necks of those whose deaths will not affect the king's purse or the coffers of the company the king serves, who manufacture mandated tinctures. Their safety data hanging from a fixture, half a mile skyward, just dangling from the rafters. My grift is sobbing till I'm cackling with laughter. I guess I would've made a decent actor. I'd be great at crying on command until they cut plus 40 minutes after. When the director waves a hand, it ain't a rap, it's now a legal matter. Honey, my grift is weeping on a mic until I'm hacking up airstrike verses like it's bombs away and batter up. Swinging on these bigots, they keep killing us to fatten up. Kill the switch, eat the rich, I think they're finally fat enough. Grab your knife and fork, the world is yours, just say you've had enough. And if you're comfy, you could go ahead and laugh it up. Tell me how the most important vote I'll ever cast is like the choosing of a bus, in that it might not take you anywhere you want, but no one can deny the fact the bus is now no longer where it was. And that's the kind of progress we should celebrate and trust. Spoken like a kid who never took a bus. Spoken like a piece of shit that used some cash to mask his stink and truly thinks he's one of us. Spoken like a terminally unserious person who equates our cries for rights to mixed up orders from a server. It paints a privileged picture of what you would label urgent if the worst thing you've experienced in life has been the time your waiter accidentally brought a tray of gold flake scallop when you clearly ordered gold flake urchin. And now you're storming out the restaurant and hopping in a Tesla. You got 80 pounds of Tony Fauci merchant.
Rewind to chains won't make you wait in such a long line. Life's not just a way to waste your free time. Air that's fit to breathe is not a free ride. Free ride. Rewind to a chance won't make you wait in such a long line. Life's not just a way to waste your free time. Air that's fit to breathe is not a free ride. Free ride.
Best to place your bets on weaponizing the identity of every limp progressive claiming grassroots integrity. Policy is a slippery slope for all of its complexity, so flex your brave resistance with this Ilhan Omar NFT. Numbered one of 723. Each depicts her valiantly championing a bill before she lays it at a donor's feet. And she can throw her hands up in the air with AOC and say if only Nina Turner could have voted present too, that's why we need another seat. We need some more progressives we elect to only tweet, who live to serve humana and their label of elective slapped on every patient's gravest needs. And every station plays the theme that medical professionals agree on the effectiveness and safety of injections authorized for this emergency. And in purely unrelated news, the profits of the ones who manufacture vaccines just increased by nearly 36 billion with a fucking B. Sometimes it feels like we're the only ones that see. Sometimes it feels like all of us are lost at sea. And every time we think we see an island on the tip of the horizon, it turns out to be another measure making sure we're kept within the watchful eye of murderous authority. And so I guess my grift is crying for the future they denied us, where the people who would buy us are a mockable minority. And we are more than genomes under warranty. And we are more than serfs in constant quarantine. If I had a single breath left, I'd let the chorus scream. I'd announce our leaders claiming none for all and more for me. None for all and more for me. None for all and more for me. None for all and more for me.
Rewind to a chance won't make you wait in such a long line. Life's not just a way to waste your free time. Air that's fit to breathe is not a free ride. Free ride. Rewind to a chance won't make you wait in such a long line. Life's not just a way to waste your free time. Air that's fit to breathe is not a free ride. Free ride. They won't let you go. Set you free, send you home. Wait, please say you know what you need is what you owed, and they won't let you go. Set you free, send you home.
I was close enough to smell the fire. Jesus took the wheel and then he kicked me off the ride. I was busy shouting at myself from in the crowd, about to throw down and drag myself outside. I had to give myself the business. When I show myself forgiveness, it goes right between the eyes. Was looking past my shoulder, never focused on the prize. I stalked myself through burning sand the better part of 40 nights. I found myself staring in the mirror, yelling, go into the light. Cause I was in the rear view, staring at the highway, horrified. I was in the road ahead, arms wide, ready to be mummified. Gonna be the fella yelling how he's sick of always betting on his life. I'll also be the guy that brought the dice. Half a dozen chambers and I keep an empty 5. Only needed one to break the ice. Only needed one to clear my mind. Only needed one to stop time.
Wait, please say you know what you need is what you owed, and they won't let you go. Set you free, send you home.
I'll be the guy that brought the dice.
Wait, so if you don't trust the CIA or you don't trust like our institutions, then what do you trust? Wait, so if you don't trust the CIA or you don't trust like our institutions, then what do you trust?
The last track, I think I only blinked once. I skipped lunch. Blinked twice. Christ, shut your eyes. Now open wide. Fascists took the nation and inflation took a supersize. It's sad to say your teachers couldn't quite make the ends collide. But now you'll probably get to see them on the weekends doing Uber drives. Say lube it with a little oil. One, it tastes expensive too. You'd be surprised how well it helps you open up your throat so you consume the lie of human rights that was sold to you by suits and ties, designer scents on plastic men with patient fangs and ancient vice. You know, the kind of greed that makes a person lose the sight of morals, so it's easier to sleep at night. It's easier to ease their minds and pick a foreign people we could demonize. If you take a sec to sink into how war criminals think, you'll know you'd never want to see inside. If every man's an open book to look within, theirs are bound in human skin and not designed for human eyes. They are wearing human skin, but they can simply not be humanized. They aren't worth the lowest of the poor they swore to crucify. Holy sweet Geneva, there's a mass grave full of dead believers you called the police on cause you don't believe in squatters' rights. You believe the sanctity of human life is relative to human worth in terms of work and dollar signs. So listen when I say you need to find the light of day before it's too late to apologize. Like holy sweet Geneva, here's a mass grave you can colonize. Because you seem to love to talk about the spirit of America. But if you saw the spirit of this land's supposed character, I think that you'd be calling ICE. And I also think the actual America is truly represented by the call to ICE. Is represented best by the descendants of some immigrants bitching about the immigrants, snitching on some immigrants, then playing dumb and innocent like good little Christians when their neighbors get deported. Until they're screaming at the store that they waited 20 minutes more because the staff was short. Because some ordinary bigot started waging war on immigrants. And honey, we'll just keep deporting because like your first vote and each election since, it turned out that the man you are supporting ended up to just be twice the fucking bigot as the bigot that he wins against. But I was not among the herd. A single word from Biden stirred a tingle in the cynic sense. I knew that a vote for Joe was more like Reagan 2.0. I could smell that sarin smoke that choked around the river bend, and so I spoke about a living end, about an anchor thrown to drowning men, a democratic president, a country never found again. A man who marinated in the blood this land was founded in. A crime bill that contains sufficient lethal ends to drown us in. All written by a man who wears a crown of sins, who currently is sleeping in a bed of sins. And it's no wonder those who truly understand the meaning of democracy are not too keen to let us in. It's no wonder other countries can't conceive of skipping meals or missing rent or being on the streets because you can't afford your medicine. That's uniquely American. And Joe has proved to be the most disturbingly American of presidents. I shiver when I think of what's to come if he's the precedent. It's a wonder I can even function still to process all the rhymes through all the resonance. Bless my heart, I'm liminally reticent, standing on a threshold of bone, ash, and sediment, near a faded marker claiming this to be the grave of all my sentiments, exactly where I left them all and just how I remembered it. It's a wonder I can even function still to process all the rhymes through all the resonance. Bless my heart, I'm liminally reticent, standing on a threshold of bone, ash, and sediment, near a faded marker claiming this to be the grave of all my sentiments, exactly where I left them all, and just how I remembered it.
Wait, so if you don't trust the CIA or you don't trust like our institutions, then what do you trust? Wait, so if you don't trust the CIA or you don't trust like our institutions, then what do you trust?
Fuck.
trust the CIA or you don't trust like our institutions, then what do you trust?
Who are these people? Oh shit. Okay, it almost worked. Alrighty. Let's do that. Let's take that off. Hi. Good evening. This is Indy. Once again flustered because it didn't do what it's supposed to quite do.
We'll do it live.
So I'm gonna turn into a banana for a second. Just for the hell of it.
We'll do it live.
And then I'm gonna switch out of banana, and that should. Hey, now you got my face going. Okay, I figured out a way to make that work. Yeah,
I'll
we're good.
write it and we'll do it live.
We'll do it live. We're good. Hi, everybody. My restream bot's saying there's 0 people watching on all platforms, and I know that's not true. So if you are there, Fred Edward is live, and Memorex. I know Fred's there. Hi, Fred. There's Mikhail's there. What's up? What's up? I saw Max Sarge over at my channel, which is still able to be super chatted, amazingly enough. We're, of course, demonetized over at INN. I got Reef sitting next to me. Oh, my God. Hi. Hi, everybody. Reef's over there.
Like, what?
Hey.
I was starting to fall asleep.
Hey, yeah. I'm not going to get into self-promo mode, man, yet. All right. Odds to, yes, it says 0 watching. See, that's thank you, YouTube. YouTube has been fucking with our channel really badly. I know that we had Clip Show running Friday night, and there were at least 10 people running and watching, and it said there were 6, and then there was 8, and then it was 50.
Whoever you are, thank you.
Oh man, it's so damn frustrating. But thank you everyone who is here and watching, and we got a good show planned, and then we're gonna get to boats later and have some fun with that. We're gonna be featuring Indie Media Award honorees. We're gonna get personal tonight, and we're gonna talk about like how we got here.
The memo said we were getting physical, not personal.
Well,
I was lied to.
Yes, you were lied to.
I got the leg warmers, bro.
Slightly. I mean, well, you
got the leg warmers, the headband.
You did get a dock, but well, they said you were sent you were offered a dock, and you don't want one of those. But yeah, then we're gonna talk about my journey in independent media and kind of how we ended up here, and just the whole damn thing about independent media, and reminisce and do a little trip through memory lane. And since I got this guy sitting next to me and he's been a co-pilot for most of it, I figured it'd be appropriate to go through it with him. And then to come take us out, I have, and I'm not going to go through them, literally just show you the headlines from 3 or 4 Indie Media Award honorees, and give you the links to those and tell you to go read them, because I think they're all worth reading and they're all really important. And then we can get out of here and watch some votes, and I'll turn it into a banana and we'll have a lot of fun. Radio Free Pizza in the chat. Is he there? What's up? Zacharoni Pizza. Go check out Zacharoni Pizza. Golden Monarchs here. What's up, everyone? All right. Okay, you're lying to me, Restream chat. I knew you would. You're a liar. You're a liar.
I don't care about you. I just want your vote. I don't care.
Well, he's another liar. Okay, now it's starting to give me numbers. I had to refresh it. Now we're good. Okay. My favorite Trump soundbite that isn't even Trump. So before we get started, let me cover this guy's face up. These are the amazing people that have supported INN. We love you. Thank you. We're almost to our goal of paying off Zago. We're almost there. We're getting so close. And then we can start working on, all our expenses for the year and covering those so we can get to other cool stuff. So that's the immediate plan. Cash App, Ko-fi, PayPal, Patreon are the easiest ways to do that. You can also subscribe at innnewsletter.com and support with a monthly or annual contribution there as well. So let me do this.
What?
Sorry. I coughed and I muted and I didn't see that. Okay, thank you.
Didn't unmute.
And then it didn't unmute.
You're welcome.
All right. So
You're welcome.
Yeah, that was weird. Sorry, everyone. Welcome. Yeah. Anyway, I'm hoping that what we see here is not a precursor to what's going to happen here. Although what we usually see is overseas becomes a test or breeding ground for things that they try to implement here. The good thing is that we have a constitution that offers a First Amendment, but we've seen the First Amendment be torn up into shreds multiple ways and times just in the last couple of years, that I'm concerned about this for sure, and how they're doing it. So I got this email. You know, I subscribe to Off Guardian. Off Guardian is a Indie Media Award honoree. Kit Knightley is one of the co-founders along with Kat Black. And Kit wrote this article about how Australia, he's actually killing it this week. Kit wrote another article also about like how the media is dead, long live the media, and talking about how it's basically just shifted toward the mainstream alternative media. That was a long piece. I think I might even have that at the end. But I wanted to talk about this one because I didn't really hear too many people. I know that Aussie Oracle, for example, was talking about it. People who live in Australia have been paying attention. And this has been up for a bill. So Kit wrote this about, 3-4 days ago. And he's talking about Australia. Australia's social media ban is the digital ID via the back door. And how are they going to do it? Through the kids, protecting the children. So he says earlier, sorry, children. Yeah, well, no, not sorry, children. It's sorry, adults. We have to protect the children. And, well, actually, you're going to get to sorry, children for a whole different reason. But earlier this month, Australia's government announced plans to ban anyone under the age of 16 from using social media. So hit that again. Sorry, children. Yeah, seriously, sorry, children. Like, no soup for you. All right. Social media companies aren't happy about it, predictably, and the kind of people conditioned to oppose everything social media related are proudly cheering it on. That's how the issue is being framed. Social media or big business versus protecting children. But that's not what this is really about. It's really about digital identity and removal of anonymity, which is something that is a little bit near and dear to my heart, considering that I'm anonymous here. He says, think about it. How do you enforce banning anyone under 16 from social media? Well, you first need everyone to prove their age before starting an account. And how do they prove their age? Why, with a new digital Australian government-backed digital identity, of course. Yes. Perhaps the one that was created by an act of parliament in May and is due to come online today. So this isn't me spouting hypotheticals. They're openly saying it. From Reuters, emphasis added. Quote, Australia plans to trial an age verification system that may include biometrics or government ID to enforce a social media age cutoff, some of the toughest controls imposed by any country to date. The plan couldn't be more obvious. Step one, create digital ID. Step two, enforce its use via think of the children messaging. That's it. It's a two-step plan. To give them some credit, they might be playing a slightly longer game here. It's possible the sweeping no children on Facebook or Twitter stance, which has come in for some criticism in mainstream papers, is a deliberately extreme policy intended to sell their true goal as some kind of compromise measure. No, I mean, they usually do that. Elon is famous for kind of teasing out the worst possible scenario and then dialing it back and acting as if he were the hero for being so benevolent, even though what he implements is worse than anything you can ever imagine.
Right.
Like paying $8. Remember it was going to be $20 for a blue check? And then he's like, nah, it's only going to be $8. It was like, oh, okay, then. Wait, what? No. He says, for example, maybe they'll relent and say, fine, children can use social media, but everyone still has to use digital ID and on anonymity so that we can monitor predators or something. However it plays out, Australia is getting digital ID because, oh, won't somebody please think of the children? And I won't play the sound bit because I don't want to get knocked out or copyright claimed. Thank you. Meanwhile, in the U.S., we can look forward to Trump putting digital biometric ID in place to secure the border and protect the integrity of our elections, which it isn't going to do, right? It's just going to ensure that only people with digital IDs can vote. In the UK, it will be about controlling immigration. The EU is getting digital ID to promote efficiency and safety. And New Zealand is getting their own, well, just because they're New Zealand and that's what they do now. It's like that medicine in Mary Poppins. It might be different colors and flavors depending on who's taking it, but in the end, it's the same stuff coming out the same bottle. Just a spoonful of sugar, right?
A spoonful of sugar? Yeah.
That's right. A spoonful of digital ID helps the authoritarianism go down. I think that's the way.
Never let anyone take your joy from you.
I thought that's the way that Walt Disney wrote the song, right? A spoonful of a spoonful of
something like that.
Yeah, something like that. Digital ID helps the authoritarianism go down. That just rolls off the tongue.
I mean, that does sound very Disney.
Well, but he would have a lot of singing and dancing and really dress it up. But that's the lyrics when you actually break it down. Always. Support Off Guardian. They have a way of doing so. You can give in pounds because they're a British outlet. So hook them up. I believe they're also a non-profit. They have Ko-fi, Subscribestar, a Bitcoin wallet, boo, PayPal. Amazingly enough, they're still on PayPal. I don't know how. But they also have direct transfer, other ways to support them via banking. Because a lot of people are getting debanked right now, and it's kind of a problem.
Yep.
So, all right. That was our first quickie. And that was not a quote-unquote quick hit. That was just an actual article that I brought that I thought was interesting.
You can't then start calling things quickies. Like, what? Like, why does it need a name, first of all? Like, why do you have to make them just do them?
I feel like I must.
My brain hurts.
I must.
Don't.
I must.
Stop trying to advertise and sell things. Okay. Not everything needs branding. It's gonna be fine.
Gensler was just a symptom of a larger problem is correct, Monarch. Well, I'm guessing that they're talking about the head of the SEC and crypto and how I'm gonna fire Gary Gensler on day one. Day one. He said that at the Bitcoin 2024 conference.
You're fired.
Yep. All right.
You're fired.
Yeah, it's not going to be pretty. Yeah, Monarch, digital ID.
With your Bitcoin, your crypto, and everything else that you're playing with.
Would it be an assault and an indirect hit against Assange because Assange is from Australia? Well, sort of. I mean, he's not really like he doesn't have any control over it or where. It's just that's where they're deciding to do this first. I don't think that there's any real correlation to that, except that they have a complete lapdog in Albanese, who's the prime minister there. But I don't know if it's really got anything to do with Julian specifically. Good question, though. I never looked at it that deep.
Julian.
All right. So, it's funny. I asked Oz, had you heard about anything happening in London this week? And he said, no, what do you mean? I said, well, there's a couple of stories I want to bring, and I don't know how much people are paying attention here. Just like we were talking about authoritarianism creeping in and really putting its clamps down in Australia, it's really happening over in London. We've been talking for months about journalists getting arrested, activists getting arrested, now citizens being arrested for tweets. Okay, anything that's really pro-Palestine, they're now taking as siding with Hamas and taking the stance of this Section 12 that you are deemed a terrorist. And they can do whatever they want to you, detain you, rough you up, scare the hell out of you, and try to discourage people from supporting Palestine publicly, because it's been hurting their the Zionist cause, and the police and the London, the British government is supporting Israel and sending arms still. And so this week there was actually a protest specifically about sending arms to Israel that got out of control, and we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the narrative. Before that happened, though, I saw this tweet and I thought it was interesting, so I brought it. A guy named Tony, who I follow.
Tony.
Let's check this out. What I did was I did a search on Twitter for London. Show me like what's happening in London. Why is this not pausing when I tell it to pause? Because when I move it, okay. So Tony says the U.S. Embassy in London was evacuated. Gatwick Airport was evacuated. Bomb disposal crew on site. Chester Station evacuated. These are not coincidences. Stay alert. Report anything suspicious to the police and stay safe. So I'm going to play these short videos. They're short. Bunch of people standing around. All right, where they've evacuated buildings. All right, you see it kind of zoom out.
I do recognize the building.
Right, so you can see people exiting the building. They've evacuated. All right. Then
what is that building? I do recognize it. I recognize the side of it or whatever.
Very, very nondescript cops looking.
It's Bobby.
And there's another one where there's a building evacuated. All right, but what he's saying again is that Chester Station?
Chester Station. Yeah.
So
I imagine.
What's going on here? So I had not really seen much talking about this. Well, World Socialist website, leave it to the trots to figure it out and to put a narrative together and say, okay, here's what part of the story is happening. That dubious bomb scares are happening in the UK, just as de facto war is declared on Russia. And we really didn't talk much about the medium-range intercontinental ballistic missile that was fired by Russia toward Ukraine, kind of without a warhead in it, a fuck around and find out kind of moment. We did report last week on how Russia has hypersonic weapons and hypersonic missiles.
English, motherfucker, do you speak it?
That we cannot stop. NATO has no way to stop the hypersonic missiles. And then we see this. So World Socialist website puts together that these bomb scares are designed to terrorize as a government way of terrorizing and getting their citizens in line and angry with quote unquote Russia. All right.
Because Putin's a madman.
Well, he's only going to be in office for a little bit longer, but this was, again, earlier this week, a series of 5 unexplained bomb scares were widely reported in the UK in just 96 hours. They're being used to fuel a hysterical anti-Russian atmosphere in the week that the Starmer's Labour government gave Ukraine the green light to use UK Storm Shadow missiles to target Russian territory in a de facto declaration of war. I can't speak. No one should take at face value any report emanating from the police and security services and their amplification by Britain's yellow press. The sequence of events in chronological order is as follows. He says, 1, on Wednesday, Buchanan bus station in Glasgow was evacuated after a suspicious package was reported at 1:10 p.m. Police carried out a controlled explosion. This followed an initial report that the Police Scotland described as a credible threat. The BBC reported, however, nothing suspicious was found and 3 men arrested over possession of offensive weapons after the evacuation of Buchanan bus station in Glasgow have been released without charge.
Nothing to see here.
Literally nothing.
To see here.
They invented it.
Please disperse.
They want to gin up. Look, something's happened. Be scared, but we're on it. We're making sure that everything's safe. Nearby, Glasgow Caledonian University campus was also evacuated as a precaution, and trains from Queen Street, which ran through a tunnel, and the bus station were also affected.
Right.
So they just disrupted everyone. All right. On Friday, November 22nd, London Gatwick Airport was the scene of another bomb scare. At around 8:20, a Sussex police bomb disposal team, reportedly made the package safe, according to the force. The South Terminal was evacuated and shut for 4 hours. Despite causing disruption for thousands of travelers, with dozens of flights delayed, grounded, and forced to turn back mid-air, it was reported that 2 people detained during the investigation were allowed to continue their journeys. All that was revealed was that a suspected prohibited item was found in luggage.
Wasn't me.
Yeah, I remember a funny, famous scene out of the movie Fight Club where he says, it's an electric razor. It's an electric razor, sir. Sure. Unless it was every once in a while, it's a dildo. Right? And then, of course, we have to use we can't use the possessive. You have to say a dildo, not your dildo, sir. Very funny. Great scene. Also, Friday.
Sorry, children.
The 22nd. Hey, this is an 18 and over show. That's why we do it late. Also, Friday, the U.S. Embassy in London was locked down due to what was described again as a suspicious package. An armed police unit carried out.
Sorry?
Bam, a suspicious package.
Hey, phrasing.
Yep. An armed police unit carried out a controlled explosion within a cordoned area. The Metro Police said initial indications are that the item was a hoax device. An investigation will now follow. 2319! It's literally like out of fucking Monsters, Inc., right? Like they called in the fucking removal team. They bolted the thing down, blew it up. There. Nobody knows what the hell it was. 2319! Well, it's been taken care of now. At around 5 p.m. the same day, the Cheshire police and bomb squads carried out a controlled explosion at the bus and railway stations in the Chester city centre. The BBC reported, Cheshire police later said a report of a package on the buses appeared to have been malicious, and it wanted to speak to a female passenger who spoke to a bus driver. Okay. So you needed to evacuate the entire fucking bus station for that? Wait, they evacuated the entire bus and rail stations at Chester City Centre because of a female passenger who spoke to a bus driver? Oh.
Yeah.
All right.
You didn't know how to do that, dude.
Then on Saturday, November 23rd, a controlled explosion was carried out by specialist officers on a package outside London's Euston station, one of the largest and busiest in the capital. The station was evacuated and a metro police cordon put in place. You okay there, pal?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Two more events should also be noted. On Saturday, the BBC, The Guardian, and Independent, beacons of truth and honesty themselves each, reported that the USAF had confirmed that unidentified drones had been spotted over 3 air bases. Great. The BBC commented, quote,
UFOs. Those were UFOs.
The incident.
Those are definitely UFOs, not drones.
Which
UFOs.
occurred between Wednesday and Friday. So small unmanned aerial systems spotted over RAF Lankenheath and RAF Mildenhall in Suffolk and RAF Feltwell in the neighbouring county of Norfolk. The USAF, which uses the bases, why are they using these bases in the first place? Said it was unclear at this stage whether
ours is yours and what yours is mine.
It said it was unclear at this stage whether the drones were considered hostile. Wait, what? Wait, they were running the drones.
Mm-hmm.
How the fuck can we not know if they were considered hostile? On Sunday, the Mail, Express, and Sun, the bullshit wipe your ass with rags, reported, based on an account in the German tabloid Bild, that a mystery drone was seen following the Royal Navy's flagship aircraft carrier, the Queen Elizabeth, 2 days earlier. That's bullshit. Allegedly. The Mail reported that the carrier seemed to be tailed by an unidentified 1.5 by 1.5 meters drone at the entrance to the port of Hamburg, Germany on Friday. And that couldn't have been operated by anyone in the Five Eyes, right?
No.
The German military tried to target the drone with HP-47 jammers before it flew away, according to the German newspaper.
Not to be confused with the HP-46 jammers, which, are a little more reliable, but less available.
This has all the hallmarks of a black propaganda campaign to condition the population for outright war against Russia. Thank you to World Social's website for figuring this out. All right? Because I haven't seen anybody else really report it this way. Significant mobilizations of the police and state forces are being organized with the explanation that there's an ongoing domestic terror threat that must be combated, and that Russia is likely pulling the strings.
Russian scum!
Mm-hmm. For years, the former conservative government, backed by the Labour Party when in opposition, have clamped down on basic democratic rights on the premise that extremism must be eradicated, especially opposition to the UK's backing of Israel's genocide in Gaza.
Of course. Anti-Semitism and the like.
That's right, antisepticism. This not only continues, but like the war in Ukraine, has accelerated now that labor is in government. It's only accelerated. Right? And Kid Starver is accelerating it. Oh, sorry, Keir Starmer.
Yes.
I mean Kid Starver. While the multiple bomb scare operations were being reported, senior figures within Britain's ruling elite doubled down on warning that Britain and its allies were being targeted for hybrid warfare by Moscow, with critical UK infrastructure the main target. Wait, you sent cluster bombs to fucking Ukraine for them to use on Russian soldiers.
Yep.
Payback's a bitch, motherfucker. That's all I got to say. All right? Their hypersonic weapons can reach London. So you want to scare the shit out of everyone. There's a reason why you need to scare the shit out of everyone. It's because you antagonize these people. Fuck around, find out. On Monday, Cabinet Office Minister Pat McFadden, whose portfolio includes national security, told participants at a NATO cybersecurity conference in London, quote, military power is one thing, but cyber war can also be destabilizing and debilitating. And with a cyber attack, Russia can turn off the lights for millions of people. It can shut down power grids. You know how it also can do that? By turning off the Nord Stream 2 pipeline, asshole.
Yep.
They don't need to have a cyber attack in order to do that. They can turn off the lights literally for millions of people by cutting off gas supply to Western Europe, if they wanted to.
How many times do we have to teach you this lesson, old man?
It's so frustrating. He added, the aim is to gain a strategic advantage to degrade the states that support Ukraine. Here in the UK, Russia has targeted our media, our telecoms, our political and democratic institutions, and our energy infrastructure. What have you done, sir? What have you done on top of sanctioning them against the entire Western world and then bombing them through a proxy and trying to destabilize their entire, like...
What's his name? Literally said it was a proxy the other day, right? Old crazy hair fucking...
Bojo, yeah, Bojo the Clown. Yep.
Yeah.
He absolutely did. I should have brought that soundbite.
Shame. Shame. Shame.
McFadden added for good measure, some of the biggest threats in cyberspace emanate from China, North Korea, and Iran. Not Ukraine or Israel, where the biggest troll farms and nonsense factories and garbage NAFO bullshit has emanated. Oh, also UK too. Holy shit. You want to talk about, like, accuse others of that which you are guilty so that they cannot possibly blame you for it. That is just a blatant admission of guilt.
We are, let's face it, we're waging a proxy war. We're waging a proxy war.
I guess you got it.
But we're not giving our proxies the ability to do the job. And for years and years now, we've been allowing them to fight with one hand tied behind their backs. And it has been cruel. It has been cruel. And we need now to give them what they need. So we are, let's face it, we're waging a proxy war.
Oh, yep. So that's Bojo the Clown straight up admitting we're waging a proxy war. And we're not exactly letting Ukraine control the thing. Well, we know that because he's the one that went to Ukraine, told Zelensky to scuttle a peace agreement 2.5 years ago that could have ended this thing and saved hundreds of thousands of lives. Shout out to our friend Andrew over on the Twitchers. Yes, he is. All right. So the government is back to the hilt by a virulently, I love that word, anti-Russian media.
Yep.
On Monday, The Guardian, fuck The Guardian for screwing over Julian Assange forever, editorialized on Europe's duty to Ukraine. Solidarity must not waver in the age of Trump. Fuck you. It warned that the permission by the U.S. and Britain to allow Ukraine to use long-range missiles against Russian territory was not a game changer in what has become a cruel, relentless war of attrition. What?
Great success.
They say that the potential withdrawal of American aid by an isolationist Donald Trump next year in order to force an unjust peace on Ukraine. Unjust, They lost for
unjust peace.
You've lost your ass for 2.5 years forcing an unjust peace.
Okay.
Zelensky already said he wants to negotiate. Certainly would be. Wow. Okay. European nations urgently require a strategy to respond to that prospect. You mean to what? To just go to war directly with Russia on your own? Good luck without U.S. support.
And the best part of this plan is no one can stop me.
Again, all that has to happen is Vlad just turns off the Nord Stream and half of Western Europe is completely porked. All right. Noting growing anti-war sentiment, it warned, sense of war weariness has been more widespread in Europe following the failed Ukrainian counteroffensive of 2023, the subsequent outbreak of war in the Middle East. You mean the subsequent genocide that Israel imposed after a prison break on October 7th of 2023, and an ongoing
not to mention all the other wars in the Middle East we had before then.
And an ongoing cost of living crisis. Again, completely self-imposed.
Yeah.
Now looking to cut the NIH, and they're making people rent wheelchairs. We covered that story 6 weeks ago.
Yeah.
This followed an op-ed published in the newspaper Saturday by Simon Tisdall, quote, after Kiev used Storm Shadow missiles, Russia's leader asserted his right to attack the UK and US. In truth, he's been doing that exactly for 2 years now. Oh, by being sanctioned completely off of the air, having no voice whatsoever in either country. Okay. Could you move the mic a little bit from where you're blowing out that hit? Do me a favor. I can hear that. Like,
yeah. Okay.
Tisdall stated, Britain and its allies have been under constant Russian attack since the war began. They've been attacking Russia constantly since the war began. He completely conveniently leaves out that other half. Like, it's totally unprovoked. I don't know why they're doing any of this. Using sabotage, arson, deniable cyber attacks, and aggressive and passive forms of covert, hybrid, and cognitive warfare. Basically,
passive aggressive even.
Basically nothing that we can actually prove, and we're making it up and pulling it out of our ass. Putin is trying to impose a high cost for Western support of Ukraine. Yeah, he should, because you're backing fucking Nazis. Oh yeah, there's that too. Never a mention of how Azov is Nazi led and run and allowed to operate within the Ukrainian military, of course. That's completely verboten. Tisdall claimed that suspected Russian hybrid warfare actions on land in Europe and in the UK are multiplying in scope and seriousness. No, they're not. They range from large-scale cyber attacks, as in Estonia. You mean where you did that, and now we're blaming it on Russia, to the concealing of incendiary devices in parcels aboard aircraft in Germany, Poland, and the UK. How is that happening if you have bomb detecting devices? If you have bomb detecting equipment, how could he possibly conceal incendiary devices anywhere? I'm debunking this shit in real time. Tisdall noted that a summit held in Poland last week of the foreign ministers of Poland, Germany, and France, plus the UK, Italy, and Spain, notice that no U.S. presence exists there, agreed that Moscow's escalating hybrid activities against NATO and EU countries are unprecedented in their variety and scale, creating significant security risks. You didn't create any significant security risks by creating a hybrid proxy war against Russia, though, right? On the U.S.'s at the U.S.'s request and demand. I mean, let's call it for what it is. The UK didn't even want this war, because BlackRock is the one that's going to benefit. It's going to be the U.S. companies that benefit from the rebuild. The U.S. was the one pushing this. We're the ones that benefited by the cheap gas being sold to Europe. This was our war. As to how far the imperialists will go in making the case for war and justifying repression, it should be recalled that a previous period of heightened global and class tensions, NATO operated an underground army of extreme right-wing forces, Gladio, which specialized in acts of sabotage throughout Europe. Nord Stream, anyone? Kursk Bridge, anyone? And now it's happening in Syria, too? How about that? The most class-conscious workers know Also know that every genuine terrorist act in the UK over several decades since the US-led War on Terror in 2001 was carried out not by Russia, but by forces that were well known to the intelligence agencies beforehand. The most recent being the Abedi brothers, with the Salman Abedi able to blow up Manchester Arena in 2017, killing 22 people.
Terror. Terrorism. Terror.
That
Terror.
guy.
Terrorist.
All right.
Terrorists. Terror organization. Terrorist attacks.
If you're wondering why there was some fear mongering happening. All right. So fuck, man. This makes a lot more sense when you look at it through that lens, and then you start seeing the other crackdowns that are happening across Europe. So the next one is I saw this, I think it was Friday morning, in a shocking display, barbarism in the heart of London. In a shocking display of state oppression, the British police raided the Kurdish Community Center and the homes of Kurdish activists, smashing doors with sledgehammers and seizing personal belongings. We've heard this story before. These actions are a blatant attempt to criminalize a community engaged in cultural and democratic activities. Where is democracy? Well, it's only for the people who get in line. These authoritarian raids come suspiciously close to the British Foreign Secretary's visit to Turkey and Turkish Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan's trip to London. This is a big deal. Turkish Foreign Minister's trip to London.
Especially with like Turkish forces and stuff like that, and this whole thing happening in Syria with,
with the Kurds,
essentially Israeli cutouts. Yeah.
Yep, and with ISIS. All right. What dirty deals are being made behind closed doors? That's a great question, and we'll find out later on. We're already starting to find out after it's happened. Is the UK now complicit in Turkey's oppressive policies against the Kurdish people? I think that's pretty obvious. The Kurdish freedom struggle cannot and will not be silenced, nor can the inclusion of European peoples in this fight for freedom be prevented or criminalized. This is not just an attack on the Kurdish community, but an attack on the principles of democracy and human dignity. Shame on this hypocrisy. Now, remember, the Kurds are our allies. The Kurds were our friends. The Kurds backed us and helped us. Now, I don't know if that necessarily is a great thing now in hindsight, looking at the whole conflict, but this is what happened after the arrest. These people are getting roughed up literally by the cops. They're right in the mob. Looks like they're a little bit behind the cops, but that's not the case. It's a long line, and they're at the front.
Nice for checkers to share their hats with them, though.
I think they stole that.
Shame on you! 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 Shame on you!
Fuck yeah, man. Shame on them. So, I think the fact that the foreign minister was there was a big deal. This is one of the dudes that was there who actually shot the video and what happened to him. And he's got, a little butterfly stitch over there. He got roughed up a little bit. All right. And then we had... Wow, I'm hearing... I got that as feedback. Hundreds of police raided the Kurdish Community Center in London this morning and plan to occupy it for up to 2 weeks under counterterrorism laws. 6 arrests so far. They're just taking over the building now? They're Israeling the buildings? What? Wait, what? When did this become a thing? That the cops can now just take over and occupy a building? A community center? Wait, what?
I mean, it is in Britain, right?
Yes. Wow.
They don't necessarily have the same differences we do.
Yes, but still, I don't think I didn't know that there was a law that said that if they suspected anything, that they could just take over a building for up to 2 weeks and set that as a time frame under this new Section 12. I guess we're learning as we go along what these new authoritarian rules actually are, huh? Now, the third story about what happened in London is really weird. And it's, to me, a story in narrative management. Here's what really happened. And TRT World, credit to TRT World, that's the Turkish government's brand of newspaper, media outlet. TRT World lists police in central London arrested dozens of pro-Palestine protesters who are demonstrating against British arms sales to Israel. It's really important that we talk about why they're there and what they're doing there. They were demonstrating specifically against arming Israel, against sending weaponry to Israel. All right? And this is 16 seconds.
Many as 300 people gathered outside the UK Foreign Office, blocking its entrance with a large banner saying genocide made in Britain. Officers first encircled the protesters and then proceeded to make the arrests as they sought to clear the entry to the building. Many as
All right, that's what happened. And then we have another video of it that's a little bit better. I thought I brought a minute. Very violent, right? I believe that we will win. And they're trying to tear down their banners. They're just blocking the entrance. They're standing there. And you've got a crush. People are being squeezed in the middle there as the cops push and the protesters push back. All right, I don't know who that outlet is. That's a kick-ass job of assembling that footage. Shout out to whoever that was. Bernadette Duher had the footage. I stand with Russia is who that is. I also stand with Palestine. So shout out to Bernadette. Thank you for that, for sharing that. Now, again, she got it right. London police aggressively cracked down on pro-Palestinian protesters. Dozens of people arrested outside the Foreign Office building as demonstrators demanded an immediate end to arms sales to Israel. Okay, like I don't know if they had permits or whatever and how this works. But that seemed like a group of people that were not looking to get violent. They were certainly protesting and they were trying to make things inconvenient. How would you like me to protest, sir, that does not inconvenience your life? I'm still waiting for somebody to answer that.
I would like you to wear giant rubber ducky shoes.
I'm waiting for someone to answer the question of how are people supposed to protest? Because I've never heard an appropriate answer from somebody that doesn't want them protesting. Now, here's where it gets fucky, is how it's framed. And it depends upon which media source and which people you look to and who's sharing it and how they decide to frame it. So we start with this one, Blue Mountain 1, Mossad certified dolphin trainer. A handful of Hamas supporters attempting to break into Downing Street and the police are overwhelmed. No riot shields, no batons, and apparently no attempt to make any arrests. Is this what the once famous British Bobby has become? Now this is 2.5 minutes. Now notice this is from standing behind the cops. So this is now from the perspective of the pigs. and of the genociders. They're trying to continue down the street, protesting and marching. Oh, there's a journalist just got through. But they're trying to hold the line. Yes, this is what cops, I guess, should do. I mean, they shouldn't be stopping the protest. So basically, this person would like more police violence, please. Fucking authoritarian scumbags. What a surprise that he's an Israel supporter. Or whoever they are. Next, you have the British Patriot, also framing this as Hamas. All right. Concerned father and citizen, not far right, just right political activist. Freedom of speech advocate. Unless you're advocating for the freedom of Palestine, of course. The same video. Chaos in London as Muslims and other Hamas supporters, not Palestine, but Hamas supporters, ignore the laws and start fighting the police in an attempt to break their way into Downing Street, which they didn't do, as an act of solidarity with Hamas in Gaza. What's your reaction to this? My reaction is, you're framing this completely wrong and fucking lying. And you're a Zionist piece of shit. That's my reaction. Next, we have Nicole Lampert, whoever, I don't know who that is, but a pretty big journalist. All right.
What is the charge?
This is a Zelensky Stan account, so we know all about what she's all about. All right. Again, fear-mongering against Russia is part of this, linking this with the Palestinian, the struggle of Israel with the struggle of the Ukrainians, amazingly enough. Paul Golding, who's the co-leader of Britain First, the UK's fastest growing patriotic and nationalist political party. So basically, he's a fascist. He's the new Nigel Farage. Yeah. Remember, Nigel Farage came up with this same narrative on Brexit. He was ultra-nationalist and ultra right wing. Again, Hamas supporters trying to break into Downing Street today. No, they weren't. Well, they weren't. Where's the front door? They got so close that they got nowhere near the front door?
Right.
But even on the quote unquote left, I don't know who World Source News 24/7 is, but they try to claim that they're down the middle. Pro-Palestine protesters clashed with police today outside Downing Street in central London. They tried to breach the Downing Street gates. Again, let's go back and remind people what happened here. TRT World had it. They arrested dozens of protesters who are demonstrating against British arms sales to Israel. They were not trying to break in anywhere. Here's another one. Now, at least, again, they're not calling them Hamas, but they are saying that they're a violent mob of pro-Palestine protesters. You see the framing from, quote-unquote, both sides. This is an American. Save America now. Look at that. Even our boy Melvin follows him. All right, or at least he did with his old account. Oh, Tara looks like is following him. Tara in Exile follows this guy too. Bubble Bath Girl. Okay, Paul. Tough guy. Bubble Bath Girl. All right. Violent mob of pro-Palestine protesters pushes back against police. If these were any other protesters, they'd be met by riot police and all be arrested. Again, more violence against protesters, please.
Yeah, but the violent mob is the problem.
Yep.
Okay.
Here's another one. They tried to breach the Downing Street gates.
Compare and contrast this with how they viewed those protests not that long ago that went after, Middle Eastern people.
Or how about the college protests? All right. Like, these were peaceful. They started out peaceful. They're trying to, Now, what happened to people that were trying to get through? My guess is that there was a line that they were not able to get through. And there was a whole group of people that were blocking the entrance. And what was happening was the cops were trying to clear people away from the entrance. That's a public street. They're allowed to be there. It's crazy. This whole story is crazy. What's happening in London is crazy. What's happening worldwide, authoritarianism-wise, is crazy. And it scares the crap out of me. And again, they're saying it can't happen here. It's already happening here somewhat, but not like that. Once Trump's in office, I could clearly see it happening like that. And even Biden being in office, I could see it happening like that. But nobody's out in the streets protesting like that. You have seen stuff like this on college campuses a little bit. And then they're framing it as the college kids are pro-Hamas and they don't know what they're doing there and they don't know why they're there. No, they want their college to stop fucking funding Israel. Stop investing their endowments in weapons systems that then send stuff to Israel. They're very clear about what they want. And it's being done with the tuition money that they're paying. And then it's being done in the name of the university that will be on their degree forever. So I feel like they at least have a right to say something, on top of the fact that their parents are paying $50,000 a year for them to be there. If they want to sleep out in a fucking yard, go ahead. Deal with their parent. Talk to their parents. Fuck, dude. Yeah.
Are you
Mouse,
fucking kidding me?
Thank you. Mouse is saying that I'm having a tiny seizure. I've been having a tiny seizure all week about this shit. Like, Jesus Christ. And not just all week, but look, arrested Asa, didn't even arrest, but detained and took Asa Winstanley's devices. There was rumor.
Eating a meal, a succulent Chinese meal.
American. There was rumor yesterday, and there was word that Sarah Wilkinson was rearrested because she reported to her parole officer and checked in per the terms of her release, and then they detained her again. And
look, I'm under what? Gentlemen, this is Democracy Manifest.
Right. So for about an hour, people were wondering what the hell was going on. Then it was, okay, no, she's all right. They didn't take her stuff and they let her go without charge, as far as I know.
Yeah.
Stories like that, talking about narrative, are definitely why we get censored. So please, if you're able to support to fill the little cup, I'll be sitting outside the subway station with a little cup. Change.
Money, please.
Yeah, that. Cash App is the easiest way. Digital. Speaking of digital currency, Cash App, Ko-fi, PayPal, Patreon. Ha ha ha. Okay. Also, INNnewsletter.com. By the way, there's new merch at indienews.shop. You see that down on that scrolling ticker? You can get yourself an INN beanie. I made a couple of those over the week.
You can do it, baby.
And shout out to, I can't remember who it was. Somebody actually bought one of them. So really appreciate them doing that. And Anna Mayers, if you're in the chat, love you, Anna. Anna picked up a couple of tank tops. One that says, "We deserve better psyops," and a new Jesse Jet tank. Some of the Zago illustrations I started to put onto t-shirts. So you can pick up an Angel Rivera Zago illustration t-shirt. If you ever want to have Angel's face on a t-shirt, now's your chance.
And now for something completely different.
Right? So, hi to everybody in chat. Hope everyone is doing well tonight and had a good Thanksgiving and a good holiday. I appreciate and I'm thankful for every one of you. Speaking of thank you, for all the support that you give, for all the sharing. Thank you. Driz saying that the chat is way funnier than the stream. Lone Star Viz, check him out. He's the salty dude over at AM Wake Up Chats in the morning. We are also now co-streaming AM Wake Up to INN over on the tweeters, so you can check out AM Wake Up there, but also watch it over with chat over on Rumble. What?
Johnny and the Weasel in the morning.
Johnny and the Weasel. No, it's not. It's not that Weasel.
Not that Weasel. What are you doing, Pauly Shore?
Well, you said Weasel, so immediately. I mean, immediately we have to go to Pauly Shore.
Tower of Jesus.
Oh my God, the worst. The worst.
You're still waiting for your kids to watch the Goofy movie. It's one of the best Pauly Shore characters ever. Like, you're like, no, it's boring. The Goofy movie is boring.
Yes.
Okay.
Mal says that Steve is his spirit animal. I don't know how I feel about that, but I kind of feel that way sometimes too. I find myself like, God damn it, that's what Steve would say too. That's disturbing.
Like an aardvark?
Something like that. That's disturbing.
What's?
Well, I don't know. So, you know, this last story that we're going to get into, it's another one. I wrote an article. I don't write that much. I write about maybe once a month, if that. I got really personal with this one because somebody asked me, "Hey, tell me a little bit more, like kind of what you do and how you got here." And I had asked them to co-host on an INN show, and they really didn't know very much about the network, though they know that we all do stuff. So I kind of just started talking and writing, and I blurted out this whole thing in DMs. I'm like, you know what? This is a good thing. I should turn this into an article. And then I expanded on it and put some other links and background and stuff to it. So I figured, since Reef and I have gone through a lot of this together, I thought it was a good idea to bring him into this one. So while this is Indy's origin story, a lot of it is also having to do with INN and with this guy too. But that last week, another creator I trust and asked me to tell them a little bit more about myself so that they get a better understanding of my perspective and motivations while respecting my need and desire to remain anonymous. My ranting response was comprehensive enough that I decided to copy paste it and then expand on it here with links. And then I worked on this thing for another whole week to make sure that it said all the things I wanted it to include. And we got this. By the way, if you're reading this, these little marks on the side is a table of contents. So it gives you all the section headings, and you can actually click and go right to a section heading if you ever wanted to go back and reference it. Very cool little feature that Substack added. Here, I'll do
Coming
it.
to a Substack newsletter near you.
Yes, this can be found, by the way, at Indie Media.
Sorry, but Rachel Maddow's death will just have to come as a pleasant surprise to me.
That's right. This is available at indiemediatoday.com. That's my blog, my newsletter that I put out. All the clips for this show and my original articles go there. So, addressing the first point about my anonymity, I choose to do this anonymously, or I chose to initially, to keep the focus on the independent reporters, outlets, and creators that I amplify, but I also largely do it to protect my family from the crazies out there, as well as to keep my career separate. I've seen too many people doxxed and have people call their boss or company and try to get them fired. No thanks. I've had personally people threaten to dox me. It's not fun. So here's an Independence Day haiku I wrote on July 4th. Hurt my back coughing. Welcome to 50 years old. Happy July 4th. Because
and your father would tell you to take smaller hits. So
well, he did. Specifically, but that wasn't but I wasn't actually smoking when I hurt my back coughing. But the reason why I laid that out is to start. I am a 50-year-old American dad of 3, so that was the turning 50, who's been amplifying independent media for the past 4+ years. I was fiercely independent from the time I could vote, right through the Obama years, never registered to a party, and sadly, bought a bill of goods on Bernie Sanders. Wasn't there. Sometimes. Bernie certainly wasn't there. Bernie wasn't there. Right? The policies the policies he was advocating for were the ones I felt would help the country. Universal health care, free college for all, universal child care, taxing the wealthy, etc. I wouldn't say Green New Deal in there, though we do need to address climate change, but not through the ESG movement and the bullshit that they're talking about. It would be through reducing the military and through hitting the top 100 corporations, which are actually the largest polluters in the world that nobody wants to ever talk about. Fuck your plastic straws.
Mm-hmm.
I was inspired by the massive group of people motivated to support Bernie and fight for those policies. Unfortunately, a lot of that...
the liberals. They will betray you.
Well, that's usually what happens. For 5 years, I was duped into blindly believing that the corporatocracy was ripe to be taken down without direct action or an alternate plan. I was also blind to the depth of corporate infiltration into the campaign, as well as the progressive media space that was sold as free from corporate influence. I'm looking at you, Nina Turner. I'm looking at you, David Sirota. Okay?
Does he look like a bitch?
I'm looking at you, Faz Shakir, who's actually done some decent stuff with More Perfect Union, but still has kind of played ball and gotten in line. Reef would just say no. All right?
Yeah, no. They lost the card. Sorry.
All of that led me to realize that corporate media brainwashing is one of the big problems. All right? The propaganda apparatus needs to be countered somehow. As an independent publisher and creator, I've been most focused on amplifying the journalists exposing corruption, fighting for people's ability to speak and publish and produce without fear of government persecution, and showcasing the stories that corporate media tries to bury, like the workers' perspective in labor fights, for example, or corporate wrongdoing that have PR firms working overtime to glaze over, deflect, and cover up. Like when the UAW purged senior leaders in 2023, and the union then turned around and accused the federally appointed moderator of being motivated by the union's call for a ceasefire in Gaza and smeared him as a Zionist. Whether he is or not, that's not what happened there. I wrote this article below almost 2 years ago to more clearly articulate just how much I see corporate media impacting all our lives. We should all be actively working to identify their corporate-driven narrative, their profit-driven narratives, question them, and eventually unplug from the propaganda machine entirely. I mean, I really have. I don't watch Netflix. I don't watch Amazon. I don't watch Disney Plus. Now, my kids do. I try really hard to keep them from it, and it's a bitch and a half to do that. But what am I gonna do? I just don't listen to it. Other than to pay attention and try to debunk the narratives that I hear them pushed upon them, and be like,
I don't want to do this no more.
I start asking, how come they said that? What do you think about that? And get them starting to question early on what the hell they're hearing.
How does this make you feel?
Rather than just accept it as at face value and watch it like blind sheep, like most people watch TV. You gotta try to teach your kids and teach everyone how to watch the news.
How do I reach these kids?
So in March of 2020, which is a week before COVID lockdowns, funny enough, all right, and before I had ever met this guy, I founded and launched Progressive News Daily, which was a news aggregator website, which is on a platform that no longer exists. It was my favorite news platform that I've ever seen, Paperly. It was incredible. It updated articles twice daily from sources that I told it to pull from, articles, tweets, YouTube videos. The idea was to create a central hub to find all the progressive news commentators and journalists that I was following at the time in one place. I had been looking for something like it. I found it didn't exist, so I built it. Using a MacBook Air, sitting on my couch every night, I curated news and shared the links to Twitter and Facebook groups. I did that for like months. And that was as we got locked down. All right. I had serious questions about the Democratic primary being potentially rigged. We were locked down during COVID and I had time. I had a full-time job, but I was able to manage doing my job. I was already a remote worker. So our transition to remote work was not nearly as difficult as others. And
guess what, bitch? Coronavirus!
And thankfully, I worked for a good company that said, look, don't worry about your sales numbers for the next 3 months. Worry about retaining your business and taking care of your customers. It was the total right move. We ended up getting tons of business back in the end. It was the right approach to take to that time. And it also freed up a lot of my time to do this curating of news and watching YouTube streams and other stuff. Like I said, I had serious questions about the Democratic Party being potentially rigged. We were locked down during COVID and I had time. I was shocked when none of the progressive shows even entertained the question or dove seriously into the vulnerability of the electoral process or the machines used to register and count votes. The people who were abandoned by Bernie and refused to get on board with the Democrats' agenda were angry, ignored, and marginalized. And I was one of them. This video by Richard Medhurst is one that I can distinctly remember as helping me overcome my focus on the hoping the oligarchy-run uniparty, masked as a duopoly, would ever deliver for the people. And I'll play a couple of minutes of my brother. I usually start around 9 minutes here.
You just keep thinking it can't get any worse, and then it just, it just does. I'm opening Twitter.
So this was the day that Bernie endorsed Joe Biden. All right. And so at about 9 minutes, he really starts to get cooking. And this is what woke me up. I saw this on Twitter. This is the first time I'd ever seen Richard.
Debt cancellation? No, fuck you. Just some crumbs. You didn't get a single policy concession from Joe Biden or the Democratic establishment. That's the problem. You let an entire movement hinge on one person and they cut the fucking head off of your movement. They left you with your pants down. And what did you get? Fuck all. It's time to wake up. Come on, get up. The capitalists, they ain't gonna give you no wages. They ain't gonna give you no health care. They ain't gonna stop bombing the brown people like this. It's go time. Come on. Don't let your movement hinge on one person. It doesn't work. FDR did the same fucking thing. History lesson. Go read your fucking history books. I'm not American. How do I know your history better than you? How do I understand your political system better than you? Wake up, Why asshole. the fuck are you lacking? What did FDR do? He took the socialists. He took the communists. He talked the talk. He gave them the New Deal. He gave them the federal jobs program. And then he cut the fucking heads off of their movement. And he absorbed their leaders. And he crushed their movements for 100 years. You got nothing since. Nothing. All the wealth going to the top 1%. And you got shit. Even during the pandemic, what did they give you? Fucking scraps, crumbs of $1,200. That's how much they respect you. And then Bernie Sanders is like, Joe Biden is a friend of mine. Go vote for this rapist. Go vote for this war criminal. And you're defending that bullshit? You got no friends in Washington, D.C. Your enemy is laughing at you, and they ain't at Washington, D.C. They're at Wall Street. Wake up, asshole.
Dude, right there. He literally, clap. He literally woke me up. When he said that, it literally woke me up.
You got no friends in Washington, D.C.
I love that man. Shout out to Richard, who's been also silenced, persecuted, as we talked about, journalists in London. In terms of his arrest, he can't really report the way he wants to and go nearly as hard against London and against Israel as he wants to. Lots of progressive outlets and channels didn't see the shift back to the corporatist side of the Democratic Party and Bernie selling out until it was too late. Some never got off that train and still believe, against all evidence, that Bernie's advocating for the people in any substantial way. All right. In August of 2020, I started producing summary graphics, not just sharing the newsletter to Facebook and Twitter, but making these little summary graphic videos and short 10-second videos showcasing top headlines and videos from each edition of Progressive News Daily with links in the description to promote the newsletter. All right. This is one of the first videos. And what's funny is a lot of the people, a lot of the organizations you see here, Gray Zone, Popular Info, Caitlin Johnstone, Nation of Change, Common Dreams. A lot of these outlets are featured a lot on our show. All right. And this is 4 years ago. But what I realized was quickly that the word progressive was a problem. And this is the original YouTube channel, progressivenewsdaily.net. I never grew it. I only uploaded a few videos because very quickly afterwards, I rebranded. All right. And the reason why is because, and again, I still hadn't even met this guy yet. I was part of a Discord server called the Jimmy Dore Discord server, unofficial. Turns out he was the admin. He had started it and he was running it and I may have even been a mod at that point. I don't think I was, but I was definitely a member and active in it. I guess we had some back and forth, but I didn't know who he was. All right. But come September, after I started making those videos, I realized that I had been moving in the opposite direction from the progressives that I was originally amplifying in these newsletters. Now, this is one where I was starting to already shift, and you could see that shift moving toward the gray zone and Caitlyn. All right. But Common Dreams, Nation of Change, they're still talking basically about progressive type of stuff. All right. The progressives weren't interested in actually challenging duopoly power, extracting any concessions out of the Biden campaign in exchange for a vote over Trump after they'd maneuvered to push Bernie out of the primary. Right. So finally, I watched the trial of Julian Assange in September 2020, which did a lot to radicalize me and expose who was actually advocating for a free press. And again, it was that guy up here, Richard Medhurst, all right, that went to that trial and covered that trial every day. And I was putting his summaries in these summaries every day and posting them everywhere, including in the TYT Slack group that I was in, that I know some people at TYT were a part of. And I was begging them to cover this trial. They wouldn't touch it. That to me was the end. Like, I was done with the entire quote unquote progressive movement with the way that they ignored the Julian Assange trial. Because it turned out that the term progressive just really meant a Democrat under 50 who's embarrassed to admit that they're Democrats. The Progressive News Daily website and social media presence were rebranded as Independent Left News to better align with where I was politically. I'm an independent. I'm to the left of everybody on the Democratic side, and I certainly have news that's a lot more accurate than whatever they're pushing. All right. I launched a new Discord server as an adjunct to the website, and I created bots to feed articles and videos into separate channels that are dedicated to each creator. And that server still exists. It's got a bunch of people there. It's basically a reference server. Right. This is one of the first rebranded summary videos back from October. Again, you can see there's a Jacobin article. Blah. Okay. And then the Squawk Box. I think we still use them. But Lee Camp. There's a Kyle Kalinske video. Ring of Fire. Beau of the Fifth Column. You can see how shit Libby I was way back then. All right. And there's no sound, but I at least made the bats move. And like you could see a little bit of motion, and it was cutesy, but all the links were there. A lot of those links are still the same. All right. Election night. So I started doing a lot more modding for channels over that summer. Election night comes, and I'm covering all over the 2020 election. I have 5 different screens up, watching all the different live streams. I had fun watching that stuff. I was still into electoralism to a point, but I was on my way out. And then comes Force the Vote. Now, I know a lot of you in chat were there for Force the Vote. For me, it was a real clarifying moment. And I would say that another important experience post-2020 election was participating in one of my first grassroots online organizing groups. It was a campaign to convince those progressive Democrats in the House, those squad members, to hold out voting for Nancy Pelosi as Speaker after the Democrats had won the House in the 2020 election. We planned hashtag blitzes and made memes and images and short videos to explain the idea and the rationale behind holding out to get a House floor vote for Medicare for all. To put every representative on the public record, whether or not they supported universal health care. All right. Part of the group wanted to convince them not to vote for Pelosi, no matter what. Not just force a vote for Medicare for all, but say make them pick a new speaker, forcing the Democrats to choose a new speaker. Because they had the leverage. They could have done it. They chose not to.
Yeah, but they wouldn't even do the first part of it.
Right. But the point was that remember how AOC ended up voting present later on for something else? If only she had voted present for speaker. Because if they had all voted present, okay, they never would have been able to seat Nancy Pelosi as Speaker of the House in 2020. They could have named anybody else. But we know what happened in the end. All right. Efforts were made to reach out to the staffs of the newly elected progressives. What happened? What did I just do? Some of the members actually had had contacts with people on AOC staff. But the idea was rejected outright, as the squad didn't want to risk being perceived as pariahs and risk committee assignments from their own party. And come on, they got pay-go. It's not sexy. They got pay-go. The most useless shit ever. All right? What they didn't get was yelled at on MSNBC as wanting to torpedo the country. No, the Republicans did that when they got control of the gavel in 2022. And you saw Marjorie Taylor Greene and Matt Gaetz and the other quote-unquote extremist Republicans actually force out a speaker and show that it was possible. We were screaming and tearing our hair out when the Republicans were doing that. This is what we wanted you to fucking do to Pelosi. You could have had that corrupt cunt out 2 years ago. When the squad was unwilling to play that kind of hardball against their own party leadership that loathed them, I knew they would never support the grassroots. I had already voted against the duopoly in 2020 and vowed never to vote for another Democrat or Republican again. Duopoly exit. Emerging from this push was a group of progressive media figures, led by some of the commentators that I was following, amplifying, and supporting at the time, that were vehemently against pushing for anything to force a vote or to upset Nancy Pelosi in any way. They revealed themselves to not be truly anti-duopoly, and we're going to support the Democrats no matter what. We know these vote blue no matter who group. Majority Report, TYT, Kyle Kulinski, David Dole, the Rational National, Mike Figueredo of the Humus Report, Hassan Piker, Farron Cousins from the Ring of Fire, and many others showed their asses that they were never going to push their audiences and the lawmakers that they had influence with to fight the Democratic Party leadership in any substantive way, especially when it mattered and they had the leverage to do so. I mean, they had all the conditions were ripe to get whatever the fuck they wanted, and they caved for no reason. That helped shape which outlets and journalists I chose to amplify and to no longer amplify as representing the view of independence moving forward into 2021. You had something you want to say, Reef, or no?
No.
Oh, sorry. So then we talk about how I started to do podcasting. That December, I recorded my first live stream and podcast, going through the top headlines on the Independent Left News website. And then in just my third or fourth live stream, I reacted to January 6th in 2021. And I'm proud to have that initial take, proud to have the footage and the perspective preserved as it was happening. And I just remember saying, like, what do these people think they're going to accomplish? This is ridiculous. Like, they're not going to take over the country. Like, it's insane that they're rioting, and I can't believe what they're doing, and this is terrible. And it was like a car crash that you couldn't stop watching. I had both woke.net on one screen and Hassan Piker's stream on the other, and they're streaming in all the different cameras that they possibly could. And I was just kind of reacting and engaging with people who were in chat, and we all just couldn't believe what was happening. But that was kind of a taste of live streaming, and I didn't really do it again for a while after that. Once in a while, I would jump on, like I took people through what I was setting up with the Discord to try to explain that better. But I really wasn't that into live streaming initially. I recorded this podcast every day for a couple of months, and I wasn't getting very many listens to it. And I'm like, you know what? It's more time than it's worth. I was recording it every night at midnight, going through and reading the headlines, and it didn't really explain anything. It literally just read like, hey, I have this headline that says this from Common Dreams, and this headline from this and this. It had no teeth. It didn't really explain anything or read the article, or it was literally just a headline read. So I stopped doing that. In early 2021, I got contacted by this guy who has a YouTube channel and asked me to join his advisory board. And we're not going to get into the whole story about this, but for me, it was free and it was volunteer. All right. That's where I ended up meeting this guy, Reef, who I was already, like I said, acquainted with, but didn't know well because he founded that Jimmy Dore unofficial Discord server, which I was already a member of. At that point, I was definitely a moderator of too. During one of these board meetings that we get invited to, an idea for a series of panel discussions was floated to talk about solutions for independence post-election after the 2020. It's like, all right, that's a good idea. A series of panels focusing on education, government, and media were arranged. Time frame was set, and I volunteered to direct it. I also helped book a lot of the guests from independent media. So I called up a lot of the people that we were covering, that the newsletter was covering, explained what we were trying to do, and every single person I asked if they were available said yes. It was pretty wild. I'd never done anything like this before. Like I said, it's the first time I'd ever produced or directed anything like that. Had no idea what I was getting myself into. All right. Reef and I were the primary drivers and the team behind the scenes producing the U.S. Solutions Summit, which was a 5-hour, 6-panel live stream on May 20th, 2021. But it only happened after many late nights, more than 100 hours of testing, coordinating with panelists and moderators, marketing the event. There were, of course, a number of people who contributed that the event would never have happened without as well, naturally. But the large portion of the work was done by Reef and I. Reef had the backgrounds and figured out how to navigate and engineer the stream using OBS, which he never used before. We had to figure out how do you multi-stream it to all these channels that we wanted to go out to. And I think we streamed it out to as many as 15 different channels. All right.
Yeah.
And manage chat and bring in all these guests. And so we had Zoom and combined with OBS and Restream and all these different moving working parts coming together for a massive event and timing it all right. It was really challenging. I would never want to do anything like it again. All right. But we pulled it off. I'm proud of what we did. It was a good intro event. I wish we could have, in some ways, had more experience under our belt before we did it. But, look, you cut your teeth where you cut your teeth. And we just, some of the panelists on that, again, Jimmy Dore was a panelist there, and Fiorella and Pasta and Kit from Hardlands Media. We had our friends there and people that we really liked and respected and wanted to see talk about solutions. And I think we even got some out. Mostly it was just a bitching about Democrats, though.
Yeah.
Throughout the summer of 2021, I became a moderator for several of the channels that I amplified to help them with chat. I did some interviews that summer about independent media. I'd never done that before. Actually did Fault Lines with Jamal Thomas. And I did Joe Firestone. And actually, so the whole story of the bird and the whole story of why people call me Indy comes from, believe it or not, Joe Firestone. That's not in this article. But the story goes is that I was chatting in his YouTube stream and it was Independent Left News. And rather than addressing me every time as Independent Left News, he said, I'm just going to call you Indy. And that's literally how it started. So when he invited me to come on the live stream, I didn't have an avatar or anything set up. Reef actually helped me with this spectralizer sound thing and a bird in the middle and kind of how do we present so that I go on a live stream, but it's not just like the boring, kind of circle that moves. So that's how this whole thing evolved. All right. I also co-streamed the March for Medicare for All. Look, we were still involved in Medicare for All and pushing for Medicare for All at that point. We were naive to believe that we would trust this government with our health care, which of course now we're glad to believe glad that never happened in a way. Certainly it would be great that more people were covered under Medicare, but the universal health care, Medicare for All, never existed. It was a dream. It was an idea and a concept, but it wasn't real. Unfortunately, it's real in every other civilized country. But we have capitalism in our country unfettered, and a bunch of different rules structured that will make it very difficult for that to ever happen. All right. But so this was like one of the snapshots. Let's see, Matt Taibbi and Independent Left News. These are different articles that I had shared and videos for March for Medicare for All. There's Lee Camp talking about it on Katie Halper's stream from 3 years ago. Amazing, right? Corporate media, by the way, was already nowhere to be found on my radar anymore, including Netflix, Amazon Prime, all pro sports. It serves the agenda of profit over people, all of it. I was focused on trying to get more people involved in helping each other and unplugging from that corporate bread circus's distraction. All right. So at the end of that summer, I decided that I want to try doing a live stream again. All right. At the end of August, Reef and I started a midnight Saturday weekly show, just deciding to read through and comment on some of the articles on my website that some people might have missed. It didn't even have a name at first, but in our third week, I finally named the show. How did we miss that? Oh, wait, you're watching that show right now. Hey, how about that? Hi, everybody. It's How Did We Miss That? This is the thumbnail and actually the first episode.
Hello, motherfucker.
Yeah. So this, I actually embedded the episode from the first, from episode 1, which was just called Stories You May Have Missed This Week. It literally, like, hadn't even, yep, Robbie Yeager, shout out to Robbie Yeager, Politify. Oh, Robbie, oh, there's another Robbie in chat too, Robbie Burns. What up, man? Good to see you. So yeah, 3+ years later, we're still here doing this show. August 28th, 2021 was our first show. We just had our 3rd anniversary a few months ago. And this is episode 137, and we're still doing it. So, very proud of this show. You know, one of the things I want to make sure that the stories that we do, like you look back on it a year, 2 years from now, that we're proud of that work and that we're not embarrassed by, oof, that story's kind of cringe now. I don't think
there's a few of those.
There's a few of those, but look, man, we've been covering 4 to 5 to 6 stories a week for 3.5 years. It's going to happen, but I would say the overall body of work, pretty damn solid. I would say I'm proud of, not to pat myself on the back, but next we get to INN, which you're all watching for the most part on an INN channel. Thank you for that. That was what I saw as our next logical step in organizing. That October, and what I didn't go into here was the reasoning why I did this. Partly I did, but I also had seen what had happened with RBN. At the time, they were still Fred Hampton leftists, and they were going through a drama, a transition, an argument internally, and they had voted CJ out at the time. How interesting that CJ is now still not part of RBN, but this was 3 years ago. They had tried to kick CJ out and saying that he had violated a rule, and it created a lot of problems. And I was like, you know, RBN's got it just about nailed. I love these guys. I really do. The one thing that I think they were all missing, and I was saying about what happened with CJ, was they were all kind of missing that they didn't have their own. The only one that did have their own channel at the time was Sabby. Nick had a channel that he didn't use much. CJ had a channel that he didn't use much. JB didn't even have a channel. Rome had a channel, didn't use much. So I thought to myself, well, if they all had their own channels, they could come and go as they pleased from an independent network much easier than having to create all this drama and then start over from scratch afterwards. So that was my initial thought. Was I was saying to Reef, you know, we know some independent creators, and none of us really quite gets the whole picture. We're all kind of missing something. But I think that we could be stronger together. So I reached out to a bunch of creators. We had a couple of Zoom meetings in mid-October. And so, like I said, that October, I reached out to some of the new creators I was following at the time about the idea of pooling resources, amplifying each other's content, and being guests on each other's shows. That was the idea. Rising tide lifts all boats. INN was launched 3 years ago this month. That was last month. We started with 16 members, many of whom have moved on, but the concept and model are still the same. All right. And you can see I put a link to the article that we posted to INN newsletter that week announcing that we were becoming a network. INN was founded on and is still to this day about amplifying each other and sharing resources and knowledge. The members share a premium Canva account. We share a premium Restream and a premium Zoom account in which we can choose to publish either to our channels or the network channels or both. It's up to each one of us. I kind of lead the thing, but everybody kind of does their own thing. I coordinate a schedule weekly, and I'm the principal driver, but the idea is that it should be able to run autonomously without any one member driving it. The big goal is to counter the massive wave of corporate-driven crap pushed out to most we know with better, more helpful content that the actual people make. Help create and help shape the media we want to see. We're still trying to figure this all out as we go along and evolve over time. I also published the INN newsletter separate from this newsletter. Initially, that was just to write articles for the members, but there's so much video activity and clips being generated every day, live streams. I started publishing first a weekly update every Friday, starting last June. And then this past August, I added a daily update because, again, I wasn't even including the clips in the weekly. There's so much happening every day. All right, and there's, again, a link to sign up and subscribe to INN newsletter. If you're not already subscribed, please do. Or it's free. You can support with a monthly or annual contribution, but definitely sign up and get those emails. They are separate from what happens in the media today. They are inclusive of all of the members of INN, plus AM wake-ups. Like in the morning now, I'm going to include a link to the AM wake-up show. And then any clips that are published throughout the day. It's the only place you'll get those other than on our YouTube channel. Now, I want to pause for 1 second before I get into the next part, because progressive, except for Palestine, was definitely a theme for a while in our space. And that is one of the things that I thought was really important to talk about when it came to independent media, corporate media versus being truly independent and corporate free, towing the line of Zionism and buying into that brainwashing and kind of walking people through a little bit of my background so they kind of understand where I was coming from there as well. So to get into it, I was raised as a conservative Jew. I was a bar mitzvah. I was married under a chuppah. And I visited Israel myself 30 years ago. But I was never really comfortable with my religion. I was always more non-secular, but culturally Jewish, of course. It comes out in my voice. I talk with my hands. I walk in a room, I open my mouth, people have an idea. Some think I'm Italian, but most of them are like, yeah, that guy's Jewish. My father's always been a rabid Israel supporter and used to always host big meals for the big holidays with 30 plus people attending, family, friends, business associates, even random stragglers. I had stopped practicing entirely after I moved out of my parents' house in my early 20s and became what I like to refer to as a twice-a-year Jew, where we went to temple only on like Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. I'd have Passover dinner with my parents, but I'd never go to temple or Friday night services or anything. We never wore yarmulkes. We never said prayers over meals, or we really, other than the couple of times a year, we barely even made reference to it. Once I got married, it was important to my wife. She had a very good experience her whole life with Judaism and with religion. And I wasn't vehemently opposed to it. I wasn't for it, but it wasn't like a deal breaker for me at the time. And as somebody who grew up Jewish, I wanted to marry somebody Jewish, mostly for the kids, because it's I didn't know about a lot of this stuff, A, and B, it supposedly makes things less complicated when it's raising children, when it's dealing with religion and everything else. How do you do that? Now, the guy sitting next to me, he says throw it all out the window, and I'm kind of with him. Fuck religion, banish it all. All right? I said I was never really bought into the prayer or the Hebrew, which I can read, but I have no idea what it means, or much of the religion at all, besides like the food and the culture and the lessons to be a good person. I'd be completely fine if religion...
Don't have a moral monopoly on, but yes.
No.
You know.
But some of the lessons about, being good to your family and being good to your neighbors and everything else and are good things. Now, there's also eye for an eye, and there's also a lot of negative stuff in the Bible and the Torah.
And those lessons don't only come from that either. Is the point?
Agreed.
Like, easily found elsewhere.
All right. But, the food, gefilte fish and latkes and that stuff, matzah at Passover and chopped liver and bagels and lox, cultural Jew. You know what I mean? Corned beef and brisket. I'm down with all that. Food, very good. A lot of it's stolen from other cultures. I get that. Yes, sure. All right. The conflation of Zionism with Judaism is something that needs to be understood and is also never discussed within the Jewish community. There was never a conversation in my family or community that there were Jews anywhere opposed to Israel existing. Israel has a right to exist is a mantra in the Jewish community, for those who don't know, as a standard response to an accusation of genocide or ethnic cleansing of what's happening in Gaza. I never heard a discussion within the Jewish community about the difference between Zionism and Judaism, or that Einstein was opposed to the creation of Israel, or why. Israel is always right and the homeland of the Jews is the only permitted narrative, and everything they do is acceptable and can't be questioned for morality under that framing. That's the way they have to operate, because the minute you start questioning, everything kind of unravels, doesn't it? All right. This is an INN news segment, by the way, talking about how this was well predating 1948. All right. Talking about the Balfour Declaration and the Zionist Conference of 1898. And we've done our homework about this to understand this, try to, from all sides. For much of my life, I had admittedly and ashamedly turned a blind eye to Israel and their treatment of the Palestinian people. More accurately, it had been shielded from my view. All right. And I don't know how to better describe this, but for those who wonder how people can go through life and never hear about it, I can confirm there is a massive silent effort within the Jewish community and within the Israel supporting, aka Zionist families, to not really speak about Palestinians at all, to not let their children learn about it at all. Aside from when Israelis, of course, are attacked in retaliation. But they're never explained that it's attacked in retaliation. They're just attacked. Self-hating Jew is the typical slur thrown around to discourage any Jews who start asking why Israel feels the need to imprison all the Palestinian people, deny them right of return or citizenship. And that's just the beginning of what a disadvantage the Israelis deliberately place on every Palestinian by design. Anyone who isn't Jewish asking questions like that, well, they're automatically painted and smeared as an anti-Semite, cast out and ostracized from access to businesses and opportunities run by Israel supporters of all religions. Thought like that is not welcome in a civilized society. We've seen that hyperinflated in the past 13 plus months. Right? Anyone who's not Jewish, yeah, you're the Goyim, as Alex Jones, very famous, they call him the Goyim. Hilarious. Israel being under attack and persecuted is the default mindset. Again, the victim mentality. And nothing has ever happened due to Israel's behavior. It's shrugged off as necessary when confronted that Israel is occupying the Palestinian people and are responsible for their well-being, selling the myth that Israel never does anything wrong is an important component to the brainwashing and ensuring compliance. Often, families and Jewish leaders don't address that side of the conversation because it leads to hard questions with monstrous answers that they would rather avoid telling their children. Below is an hour-long conversation I had with my brother here, Colin Radix Carter. Shout out to Care Bear, one of my close friends, where we discussed the pushing of a narrative which tries to link the struggle of black people in the United States and Jews, equating the struggle of the Jews in the USA with the struggle of the African Americans. We talk about the brainwashing of Jewish kids about the Palestinian people and the framing of Israel as the birthright land of the Jews, which is insane. And if that's the case, wouldn't every American then have to allow a Native American to then take their house back? Good question.
Huh?
I literally had to seek out this kind of coverage to find it because corporate media would never allow speech that's critical of Israel. Once I saw it, I couldn't unsee it. And that's why they work so hard to prevent you from seeing it, by the way. Courageous journalists like Asa Winstanley and Richard Medhurst, Sam Husseini and Eva Bartlett, Vanessa Bealey, Alan McLeod, shows like The Convo Couch and The Jimmy Dore Show, Going Underground with Ashton Ratansi, Redacted Tonight, and anti-Zionist independent Jewish journalists and commentators, who I look up to like Max Blumenthal and Aaron Mate, Dan Cohen, David Miller, and Lee Camp, Eleanor Goldfield, and others. Then you've got documentaries from Abby Martin like Gaza Fights for Freedom. All of these introduced me to the perspective of the Palestinians. They're censored, largely banned from major media outlets speaking on behalf of the Palestinian people. All right. We see the way that Piers Morgan does it. He brings on a pro-Palestine person, lets them get attacked by Israeli supporters, and then in the 2 minutes that they're defending themselves and trying to establish what they want to talk about, they're interrupted constantly by idiots like Alan Dershowitz. That's how they frame the whole thing on corporate TV. They don't let, and no Palestinian, by the way, is ever invited to speak themselves. It's always somebody else on their behalf. A British journalist, a Lebanese journalist, an American commentator. Other people are brought on who support them, but they never actually talk to the Palestinians themselves. One specific moment that changed my view permanently was in May of 2021, when the IDF murdered journalist Shireen Abu Akleh, who was a Christian, and the Riot police then attacked her funeral and attacked her pallbearers. And again, the one who provided the level of rage and anger that I felt was appropriate was my brother Richard Medhurst. All right.
I'm speechless. I'm so speechless. You know, again, when you see Shireen, she's like a household name. Everyone has grown up watching her in the last 20 years. And, you know, when you see Shireen, it's like you see, you know, I look at her, I see my mother in her, my auntie in her, you know, it's, and they just took her life away. And then they won't even let her be buried in peace, you know. The Israelis sent riot police to the courtyard of the hospital, and they start attacking the people carrying her coffin, and the coffin almost falls over. Can you believe this? They kill this poor woman, and not only do they attack her funeral, but the day that she died, they raid her house. They actually smashed the window of the hearse just to take the Palestinian flag off of the coffin. The way that the mainstream media, they're so disgusting in how they hide this. The BBC said her coffin was jostled. Jostled. Look at this. This is how they described her being murdered. They said she was hit in the head by a bullet. What? Did it fall out of the sky? And Blinken says the Israelis intruded. What do you mean intruded? They're beating them. You call this intruding? The coffin is on the floor. This is intruding? The Israeli army spokesperson described Shireen as, quote, armed with cameras. Please explain this to me. So they say when Shireen was killed, she was armed with a camera. Okay, now she's dead now. You killed her. She is in the coffin. Is she still posing a threat? What is she armed with now that you have to make the coffin fall over? What threat are the people carrying the coffin posing to you? Shireen was Christian. Remember that. She was Christian. Do you see how this has nothing to do with religion? It's not about Jews versus Muslims. It's about colonizers, the Israeli colonizers, and the colonized Palestinian people. And that's why today when Shireen was buried, you cannot count the number of people that have come out. Muslims, Christians, you name it. It's unbelievable. She's very well known in the, not just for Palestinians, but for the whole Arab world. So you have many people who grew up watching her on TV, and the Israelis killed her just like that, like it's nothing. And they're going to keep getting away with this. They will keep getting away with this because they know they can. This is why they have no shame. This is why they beat people carrying her coffin during her funeral. They know the cameras are there. They know this. They don't care because they will keep getting the money from America. The press will keep covering for them. They don't care. And this is the sad irony. This is the sad irony that Shireen spent her whole life exposing and reporting on Israeli brutality, and she died reporting on Israeli brutality and was buried amid Israeli brutality to the last second, till she was put underground. Israeli brutality and the brutality, the violence of the occupation, in life and in death. The ones that are beating people while they mourn, the ones that kill journalists, those are the real terrorists. Okay, never forget that.
Fuck yeah. That is one of the moments that radicalized me, personally, to see that. Grapentine, you're absolutely right. This was 3 years ago, 2 years before October 7th. The Palestinians are the most tested and provoked people on the planet. Amen, man. Terrible. All right. To continue, that in that same month, the IDF destroyed the high-rise building in Gaza, which housed the Associated Press, as well as many other media outlets, including Al Jazeera. It showed me just how one-sided the battle really was, especially with US and UK financial and military backing, how they'll murder the people telling the truth about Israel's brutality rather than allowing anyone to hear about their behavior, because we know that dead men tell no tales. All right? This is a clip that we did over the summer from Kyle Anzalone talking about how journalists and aid workers continue to be murdered by Israel. October 7th only pushed the narratives in Israel murdering Palestinian children to unprecedented levels, further reinforcing what I'd learned about Israel's tactics over the past few years. But this did not start on October 7th, like Grapentine says. It did not start in 1948 or even 1932 in Germany. And again, I'm going to include the segment about Lord Balfour, 1917, Balfour Declaration, where he agrees to gift Palestine to the Zionists. Most Jews never ask or bother to investigate what happened in 1948. We just accept that the land was gifted by the world to the Jewish people after the extermination of 6 million in the Holocaust during World War II. That's a whole other question. I never heard the question asked or addressed whether anyone was living on that land or how that happened and what happened to those people specifically. Here's a clip from when our friend and Shandamasta Indie Media Award honoree was on the show and co-hosting a UN report about how Israel was committing war crimes against Palestinians. I mean, not a surprise, but it's out there, it's documented, and they're proudly doing it on TikTok. But it's forced me and many others to look a lot closer at everything that the U.S. does, and led me to be outspoken about how Israel must be stopped and what that looks like. All right. This was another clip we had done a few weeks ago about just how they're bulldozing and wiping out the Palestinian people, systematically, this was when they started bulldozing the streets of the West Bank. All right. And now they're just bombing the West Bank and displacing people and having Israelis, having settlers live in their homes and then demolish the home. One can't be truly anti-imperialist while ignoring the influence and propaganda and whitewashing of child murder and prisoner torture pushed by Israel, the US, and UK with regard to treatment of the Palestinian people. Period. There is no such thing as progressive except for Palestine. You either are or you are pro-genocide. Now, take a little bit of a breath. I also have done quite a bit of other stuff, but I didn't really want to. This would be miles long if I got to everything that I did. But in January of 2022, I wanted to try my hand at an interview show. So I started one called Friends of Indie Left, where I interviewed some of the journalists and podcasters that tell the truth in the face of corporate corruption that get censored. I recorded 11 episodes in 9 months back in 2022. Maybe someday we'll bring it back. I enjoyed the conversations that I had, and some of them are still some of my closest friends in this space who I really rely on and on their opinions and really appreciate the work they put in, like our friend Fiorella here, who was the last one that I did. But Alex Rubenstein and Misty, JB, Kit Cabello, Sabby Sabs. Sabby Sabs was the first person I wanted to talk to. But not only did I start doing interviews, I also wanted to, I had to try my hand at executive producing, because Tara Reid, everyone here in chat is familiar with Tara Reid, our sister, who's living in Moscow. Tara Reid had joined INN at the start. She since has, amicably departed to do her own thing over with RT and over in Russia on her podcast. But back in March of 2022, her previous podcast deal with RT didn't get renewed, and she asked us to help. So I led and assembled a team of 5 that we built to rally around and support her, producing and hosting and promoting 80 episodes of The Politics of Survival over the past 3 years, even as we figured out a transition of her moving to Moscow. Shout out to Oz the Boomer, by the way, for really stepping in and helping out in the first 5 or 6 weeks while we figured out how to get this all together. I even got to be a guest on the show in one of the final episodes, which was very cool. And I include that if you want to listen to us talk about some of the other inside baseball and how I first met her and that whole thing came together. All right. But then I talk about my brother, Jesse Jett. I mean, what can we say about Jesse? I think everyone in this chat loves Jesse Jett like we do. That same month that we started Torah's show in March of 22, we invited Jesse to join us at INN. He'd already been a guest on like 6 different shows. He'd been on Reefer After Dark a bunch. That was a show we used to do every Friday night. That was fun. But Jesse happily agreed to join and become a member of the network. We told him he could become our musical director. Everyone gets a silly title. And he turned to me and said, for a show, I was thinking about doing like a variety show where I play some music and I read, we'll break down some of the lyrics and engage with chat. I'm like, yeah, that sounds cool. He's like, I want you to be the host. I was like, well, okay. Blew me away. I never figured, but I'm so honored that he asked me to. But that's American tradition. We just had our 51st episode after 2.5 years, and we're still going strong. And I love doing that show. Producing that show is an absolute pleasure. We also then expanded into taking all of the performances and assembling them into a clip show that I then put out every other Friday night. And then when we do a Tuesday night live show, I'll rerun that Friday night too. It's therapy, fun work, I call that, and a privilege to be able to help Jesse share his art with the world. I'm only frustrated that more people aren't hearing or seeing him. We're working on it. Please, whatever you can do to share Jesse's work and to get more people knowing and hearing Jesse, that's That's what we really want to see. And we just made some more merch, so there's new Jesse merch even in the indienews.shop. So other odds and ends and skills, I've also gotten, like you see, the writing bug occasionally, sporadically, when I'm inspired to do so. I get a crazy bug about something. I get really pissed off about something like Stripe screwing over the last American vagabond, and I decide to kind of write an article highlighting that. And what do you know? Stripe reversed its policy, and last American vagabond was allowed to stay, which is great. I make a lot of graphics and intros that you see for the channels. I learned how to do some basic video editing, so I make a lot of the clips from the show and from American tradition, and to edit together and stitch together the clip show. And I've tried to help dozens of channels with their graphics and live streams and publishing to Substack, and advice with regard to channels and multi-streaming and overall strategy there. There are several other shows and podcasts that I produced, and I never even got a chance to touch on the Indie Media Awards. Hey, that's a little something that I thought definitely deserves some shine, a little bit of a mention in here. The creation of the Indie Media Awards to highlight the small group of people who are usually censored and shadow banned, but still dedicated to telling uncomfortable truths and fighting the corporate machine. And, we have the Substack for Indie Media Awards, which has a page dedicated to each award honoree with all of their links to find and support them. Again, eliminating corporate media and bypassing them to get directly to the people who are on the ground that are telling the stories is what we want to focus on here, because we know that corporate media is selling advertising, they're selling lies, and they're selling narrative. I didn't get to talk about all the specific coverage issues. Now, I talked a little bit about Julian Assange's case, but we were one of the shows that covered that case more than most others extensively, and networks. Of course, INN News as well. The releases of the Twitter files, the Israeli assault on Gaza, reminding people that it started long before October 7th last year. All the strikes that we covered and all the labor. I barely even talked about labor. How much of this show has been dedicated to talking about workers and the workers' struggles, all right? And criticizing third-party labor unions like the Teamsters and the UAW, all right? And also the launch of Indie's Tech Tips channel in last January, where I'm trying to parlay a lot of this knowledge into sharing that with the world so that they can get the benefit of other people who are looking to possibly start creating stuff on their own. Where do you go? Where do you start? Where do you look? So that's a Rumble exclusive channel. Again, all these things you can find here in this article, and this will be linked in the description afterwards. So now what? All this has led me to a point where I am firmly anti-electoralism at the federal level, because our vote has zero influence on policy, thanks to the Princeton study. It's a consent ritual that has zero material impact on our lives, especially living in a state that's usually pre-decided before the polls are ever open. A blue state, like, what's the point? There are solutions outside the system of ticking a name in a voting booth and checking out until the next election, largely centered around mutual aid, education, and supporting local businesses over multinationals wherever possible. Also using cash and not playing into digital money wherever possible. I remain focused on trying to awaken people around me about just how controlled their lives are by corporate media, begging them to opt out, and sharing which journalists and outlets they should be paying close attention to. Newsflash, it's the ones exposing corruption, those fighting for people's ability to speak and publish and produce without fear of government persecution, and telling the stories that corporate media tries to bury. I remember I said something about that up at the top. There's also a lot more here too, obviously. This is just scratching the surface. I'm thinking about writing a book about all of this and my journey in independent media, and then talking about some of the other topics that I would like to expand upon. All the other people who were involved at INN and those who are still a part of it today. And like I said, one day I'll probably write a book, and this is a good start. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk rant. learning more about the perspective of the person that's here in this suit with the crazy head for 3 years, all right, behind the keyboard, microphone, and newsletter. All right. And I'm exhausted. I'm spent. I appreciate everyone listening to me go through that and get through that. You know, I care. That's the bottom line is I give a shit like too much to the point where people are like, why don't you just like kind of put it all down? You got a nice life. You got a good family, and why even bother paying attention to any of this shit? Like, just put it down. I wish I could. You know, it's like Jesse Jet said, red pilled. Like once you know, you can't unknow. And that's why I'm here every day, 7 days a week, dedicated to sharing and amplifying independent media, to helping the members of INN grow their channels and their ability to reach people with an anti-corporate, anti-capitalist, anti-imperialist message. And I appreciate all of you out there listening, watching, and sharing, and telling other people about what we're talking about. I didn't even mention the words none of the above. I sort of did because I said that I'm anti-electoralism, but none of the above has been like a big thing here. And we're still about none of the above because there's nobody coming to save us but us. So we made the media that we wanted to see. We continue to do that. We'll continue to support the people that are telling the truth and vet the people who are coming in to see whether they do or don't. Ian Carroll, are you listening? You know, people like that show up. We can see the ops because we've been here a while. And we want people that actually are here to share the truth and to expose the bullshit. And when you're here to sell a narrative, it's really obvious to see the people that aren't. So, yeah, that's where we're at so far. But why are we still here? Just because we're here? Roll the bones. Why are we here? Because we're here. Roll the bones. That's a Rush lyric. All right.
I don't want to do this no more.
Some days that's exactly what I say after all that. Now, I did want to bring real quick a couple of Indie Media Award honorees.
You lost the real quick.
No, real quick. I'm going to show you headlines.
No.
The potential of co-ops for economic equality was in Popular Resistance Indie Media Award honoree this week. I'm going to include that link in the description for everyone to check out. It's a World Social Report on co-ops, and we talk a lot about alternatives to unions and alternatives to capitalist systems. Worker-owned co-ops is one way to do so. Roger Meadows, I know, just got very excited. Next, Unicorn Riot, in an inaugural class 2022 of Best Outlets in Indie Media Award honoree, all right, put out an historic investigation of U.S. boarding schools for Native children, ends with a scathing report. Definitely check this out. It's embarrassingly horrible how badly. I mean, it's no surprise, but from the passage of the Civilization Fund Act in 1819 up until 69, the U.S. government stole indigenous children from their parents, separated, killed family members as part of a broader policy to steal territory, sever the cultural, economic, and spiritual ties between indigenous peoples. That sounds a lot like what Israel's doing right now, doesn't it? Huh.
Mm-hmm.
How about that? Definitely check out Unicorn Riot and Niko's investigation here. Then this came through SheerPost. This is an outlet called Stateline. Cities, this is the positive story. You know, people say we're all doomerish and we never have any good news. Here's a good story. Cities cut red tape to turn unused office buildings into housing. How much of that commercial office space could be repurposed right now? All right. Next, we have Common Dreams. They need help Giving Tuesday. They're really fear-mongering the crap out of people, honestly, about Trump. It's pissing me off. But they're worried about having their nonprofit status pulled because they're pro-Palestine, as do others. But they put out an article this week about how poverty doesn't fly, that ahead of Thanksgiving, Charlotte airport workers went on strike. I think JB Font was the only person I saw that covered this. Maybe Lee Camp, too. Not many people cover what Common Dreams covers. But I thought it was worthy of noting that the workers at Charlotte Airport went on strike. That's called leverage. Fuck around and find out. All right? So that's 4 Indie Media Award honorees. Check out all those articles. And then finally, another Indie Media Award honoree is our friend Shanda. All right? She of course, needs our help. All right? She's battling lung cancer, small cell lung cancer. We got her over the $13,000 mark. Thank you to everybody who's helped so far. That's kind of stalled out a little bit. So we're hoping, especially for Giving Tuesday, which is this Tuesday, it would be incredible if people had the ability, if you got a couple of bucks, hook up her GoFundMe, please. And I'll put the link in the description for everyone. Finally, and Shanda had, by the way,
it's not a tumor.
It is a tumor, and her tumor's name is Terry, and she's been kicking Terry's ass. Terry's been kicking her ass a little bit, but she's gonna beat the shit out of cancer. She's already doing it, and we love her. And she no Trailer Park Pundit this week. She's still recovering, but I'm sure she'll be back as soon as she's able to. I know. Finally, you've got, like I made my pitch in the previous article, INN newsletter. Sign up there. You'll get a daily update and the occasional article from an INN member. All right, but
coming to a Substack newsletter near you.
Right, and then the weekly update as well that's sent out on Friday afternoons, and that will include all the live streams, all the clips, all the articles, everything, every day. And then Indie Media Today. Hey, look, there's the article that I just read, pinned right here. And then the link for tonight's live streams are there. That went out at noon today Eastern. And all of the clips are emailed out individually as their own articles. Original articles written there. How do we miss that? Live streams, guest appearances. So when I'm on Hardlands or if I'm on INN News or whatever, I try to put that out here. Tech tips, etc. You get that all here. All for the low price of free. $0, as Steve pointed, value for value system here. So, speaking of which, this is the way that we hook up our streamers and our network. If you appreciate the work that we're doing and you want to see us continue and help us keep the lights on, we got Cash App, we've got Ko-fi, PayPal, and Patreon, or INNnewsletter.com. You can buy your merch at indienews.shop. All right, we ran about 15 minutes long. That's not too bad. I figured it'd be a while to get through. Max Sarge, I want to address this. You want to say that Claire Daly and Mick Wallace should also be part of the Indie Media Awards? And I disagree only for one reason. Politicians are not included. We do not include politicians in Indie Media. They're politicians. Comrade Misty was right.
We're fucked.
We're fucked. Yes, that's right. We are fucked. That is correct. But yeah, thank you, Tris. Really appreciate that. Anthony, what's going on, brother? One of the longtime friends from very early on in Convo chats. Definitely one of my old friends in independent media, and really appreciate everybody that's here to support INN that stepped up. Shout out to Kit Cabello and shout out to Sabby Sabs and to all the other creators with much larger channels. Steve at AM Wake Up that have amplified INN, that have helped all of us out and really have put the ladder back down to help out the people that are going to be the next generation of independent media. And I feel like we're trying to do the same thing in a way, even though we're nowhere near there. We've at least got the experience to know how to operate the stuff, how to turn the lights on and how to make the equipment work, that we can help people do that. So if you're ever looking for help, advice, by all means, please reach out. and we're happy to have that conversation. I know I've talked with my friend Zacharoni Pizza about some of that stuff. Golden Monarch has started a Substack, goldenmonarchnews.substack.com. Go check that out. And yeah, well, we're going to go to boats, and we'll be back next week to do another episode of How Do We Miss That? Again, really appreciate all of you. Support independent media because we need it more than ever. Fuck corporate media. Support independent media. Love you all.
Bye. We'll see you in a bit.
Ciao, baby.
No! We just fucking lost the stream!
Thank you.